debate and discussion on this issue. At this time, I would like to yield for such time as the gentleman may consume to my distinguished colleague from Connecticut. Vermont, rather.
I thank my colleague from California. Vermont and Connecticut have a lot in common, but we have different members of the House. I will be very brief because there's not a lot that I can add to what so many of the previous speakers have said, except that I want to come here to express my solidarity with Mr. Dellums and Mrs. Boxer and all the others who have been down here who are raising some deep concerns about what is going on in the Persian Gulf. Let me just touch on a few points. Now is not the time to discuss the causes of this war. Others have done it better. Or even to ask the question of what will be the long-term impact of this war. Frankly, however, I have deep concerns as to whether the day after the war ends, the day after the United States and its allies win this war, I think we do have a right to ask whether, in fact, the deep-seated problems of the Middle East will have, in fact, advanced one step forward in terms of long-term solution. Will the Israelis and the Palestinians be getting along better the day after the bloodshed is over? Will the gap between the rich and the poor in the Persian Gulf, between the sheiks and the kings of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and the very poor people all over that region, will that essential and very deep problem have taken one step forward in terms of its solution one day after this war is over? I fear not. In terms of the causes of this war, it's not necessary now to get into the whole question of energy policy. We had that debate in the early 1970s. Apparently, we have learned nothing. We have the capability to break our dependence on Persian Gulf oil. Will we, in fact, do it? Will we put tens of billions of dollars into mass transportation? Will we demand that our automobiles get 50 or 60 miles to the gallon as technology allows us? Will we do that, or will we continue to be dependent on Persian Gulf oil? Frankly, I am not of the opinion that we have yet, despite this war, learned that lesson. Others have talked about how the day before Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, the illegal, the immoral, the brutal invasion, there was the Bush administration urging more money for Saddam Hussein. Might we begin to learn that the man who one day was our friend and our ally and the next day becomes our Hitler, that maybe there is some problem in terms of this foreign policy? Will we learn that? I am not sure that we will learn, Mr. Speaker, because today, as you know, one of our allies in this great fight for freedom is that other freedom fighter, Mr. Assad of Syria. Now, the debate may rage as to whether or not Mr. Assad is a worse dictator than Saddam Hussein. There are those who say yes, there are those who say no. But I fear that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, our great ally, Mr. Assad, may be our enemy and we will be at war with him. Have we learned that lesson? I fear not. Mr. Speaker, some also make the point that one of the functions of this entire war, one of the manifestations of this war, is that while every single day the newspapers are full of war news, that in fact, and this body, the Congress, the President, are focusing on this war out of necessity, that we are losing focus on some of the enormous problems facing this country. How many of the viewers understand that today, yesterday, in the Senate Budget Committee appropriated $82 billion more for the S&L bailout? $82 billion. At a time that we have 2 million people sleeping out on the street, a $3.5 trillion national debt, a health care system which is falling apart, an educational system that is in desperate need of funding, $82 billion more as a result of the thievery on the part of the S&L people and the inaction of the White House and this Congress. Are we focusing attention on that? Are we dealing with the fact that the standard of living for working people in this country is declining as this nation continues its de-industrial policy, so that the new technology, the new manufacturing capabilities are developed in Europe and in Japan, and our kids learn how to flip hamburgers at minimum wage? Are we focusing the debate in this body and in the White House on those issues? Are we talking about why it is that half of the American people no longer even bother to vote They are so disgusted and frustrated at the political process. Where is that debate to say to the American people, the poor people and the working people, this is your country. Participate. And if the people in this body and in the White House are not representing you, throw them out. But we have got to ask the question why it is that this nation has far and away the lowest voter turnout of any industrialized nation on earth. Are we debating that issue? I fear not. We are looking at the Persian Gulf, and many of us have those concerns that while enormous problems exist here, all of our energy and attention goes to the Persian Gulf. It has been said earlier, another issue that I will not get into at great length. What does it mean in terms of long-term policy? Not only the King Hussein of Jordan turns on us, a longtime ally, but the 300,000 people in Morocco march against us. What will it mean if the American flag flies in Baghdad? How many years and how many troops will we need in that part of the world to protect us there? If you think the British are having a problem in Ireland, I hesitate to see what kind of problems we will have amidst all of the Arab nationalism. Those are all issues that other people have talked on, and they've gone into greater length, and they've done a better job than I have. I just want to express briefly one or two concerns that I have for the immediate moment, and that is that I agree with, I think, virtually everybody who has spoken here, that it is absolutely imperative that we do everything in our power to avoid a ground war. Now, nobody can estimate what the casualties will be in a ground war, but there are those who say that we're talking about tens and tens of thousands of Americans and probably 10 times that number of Iraqis and other people. Now, it seems to me that in the last 3 weeks, Iraq has suffered terrible, terrible punishment as a result of the air war. Now, at this moment, is Saddam Hussein willing, is he smart enough to finally say that maybe now he should withdraw from Kuwait to stop the further bloodshed? The truth of the matter is, I don't know the answer. Nobody in this room knows the answer. But I think it might be a very good idea if the United Nations or some other international body proposed a ceasefire, proposed negotiations to say to Saddam Hussein, out of Kuwait, you've suffered terrible punishment, get out now before there's worse punishment and worse bloodshed. So I would hope that the United Nations would be activated, call for a ceasefire, call for negotiations, and demand that Saddam Hussein get out of Kuwait now before worse bloodshed is caused. And that's about the only point that I want to make. We are into something that is terrible. I think we are all agreed that we want to end this horror with a minimum amount of bloodshed. And I simply want to congratulate and commend my colleague, Mr. Dellums, and the other people who are raising these very important issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the gentleman for his contribution.